Our third set of ectoparasites are flies and bots. We are still in the phylum Arthropoda. The fly we're going to discuss is Tabanus, and the bot that we're going to discuss is Cuterebra. So Tabanus is also known as the horsefly. Many of you may be familiar with the horsefly. The adult flies have large eyes. They have cutting, sponging mouth parts. They are stout body, meaning kind of stout, kind of chubby-ish, and anteriorly projecting antenna. So here on this picture, we have anterior projecting antenna. We have the cutting, sponging mouth parts, and we have the large eyes on the head here. So the hosts of Tabanus are going to be horses, cattle, deer, humans, and other warm-blooded animals. And they are going to infest the skin, although they don't stay long. Remember, they're landing, they're going to feed on the skin of its host, and then it's going to fly up and away. For the life cycle, the females need a blood meal to lay their eggs. The eggs are laid in masses on overhanging vegetation of streams or ponds, and the larvae, when they hatch, they drop into the water or the moist soil. And those larval stages 1 and 2 do not feed. They literally just develop on their own without feeding. The third larval stage will feed on other insect larvae and other animals on top of it. Larvae will overwinter in the soil or dead vegetation and pupate the following spring. The pupa will last a few days to 3 weeks, depending on the weather and the environment, and they'll molt to adults after that. The adults become more active in warmer months. So only the females feed on blood. It's a very painful bite and can cause blood loss. So when they bite, they don't just keep their cutting, sponging mouth parts down inside of the host. The blood will actually pool on top of the skin, and that fly will actually kind of ingest the blood that pools on the skin of its host. What this causes in horses, it will cause bolting, which is known as gadding. So they get bit by the horsefly, and it's such a painful bite that the horses just take off as fast as they can across the pasture. There's also a loss of milk or meat production in beef or dairy cattle that are out in the field. It can cause expended energy by hosts, especially with bolting and gadding. And just in general, it's kind of a stressful environment whenever you have multiple horseflies biting on these animals. So it's expended energy and stress for the hosts. And Tabanus is also a mechanical vector of anaplasma, Bacillus anthracis, which is known as anthrax, equine infectious anemia, tularemia, trypanosomes, which include Trypanosoma krusei, and other trypanosomiasis, and Eliophora schneiden, which is known as the arterial worm of elk. Now, the bot that we're going to discuss is called Cuterebra. Many of you may have heard of this before or even seen it in a clinic. It is commonly known as the rodent or the rabbit bot. So the adults resemble bumblebees. They have vestigial mouth parts, meaning ones that do not work. So the larvae, the early stages, are light colored, and once they're fully developed to their third stage, they are a dark brown bot with black spines. So the larval stage is known as a bot. So the hosts for Cuterebra include rodents, lagomorphs, which are rabbits, canids, felids, squirrels, and humans. The infestation site is subcutaneous connective tissue in the neck. You may see here in this picture, we have a squirrel where it's on the back side, the dorsal side of the squirrel. You may also occasionally see Cuterebra in the mouth, the nose, and also in serious infections or for larvae or bots that have traveled the wrong way into the body. You can also see brain infections. The female flies will lay their eggs along rabbit runs or at the entrances of rodent burrows. The first stage larvae will hatch as the host brushes by that entrance to the rodent burrow or along the rabbit run, and then those larvae will enter those natural body orifices. The larvae mature in about a month in a subcutaneous warble. They're kind of looking like cysts underneath the skin, and in those warbles they do grow and grow until the larvae are ready to leave the host, in which they fall out of their warble and they pupate on the ground. The adults will emerge and mate once they are ready. The pathogenesis of Cuterebra, secondary infections can occur. So we obviously, in this right-hand picture here, we have a warble. We see this tiny little hole. This is actually where the larva first entered into this host body, and that little hole is used for breathing. So it allows the bot to feed on the tissue subcutaneously in this warble, but this breathing hole, known as a spiracle, allows that bot to breathe through. But it can cause secondary infections. So in this case here, we see this raw skin. If that animal itches or if there's any type of exposure to bacterial, this is where those secondary infections can occur to the skin. It can cause formation of fibrotic cysts, so you can see the warble on the back of this mouse here. Even once this larval stage, this bot, falls out onto the ground, you can see that this cyst may not go away. The body may have walled off this area where a foreign body was, and it may continue to stay there. And so it'll be very hard, almost like a very hard cyst that doesn't go away. It may not heal and be reabsorbed by the body because the body has walled it off. And obviously, larvae can end up in the brain and could potentially be fatal for a host. This is rare, but it can occur. So next we'll move on to fleas and mosquitoes.